After centuries of being a natural wonder and a tourist hotspot, the Dead Sea has finally dried up. But what seemed like a geological event is turning into a nightmare for the region. Something terrifying is happening, and it's leaving scientists scratching their heads. Join us as we uncover the shocking truth behind the mysterious occurrences that are now threatening the safety of the area, and the possible implications it could have on the rest of the world. In the heat of the Middle Eastern sun, the salty lake at the lowest point on Earth, the Dead Sea, is progressively shrinking. It's a slow-motion problem for those who live on its borders, but getting enough water to support the sea will be a major challenge. One thing everyone knows about the Dead Sea is that you can't sink in it. It's 8 or 9 times saltier than the world's oceans, so dense and mineral-rich that it doesn't seem like water at all, more like olive oil mixed with sand. For decades, no trip to the Holy Land or Jordan was complete without a snapshot of a bather sitting bolt upright on the surface, generally reading a newspaper to highlight the amazing characteristics of the water. The Dead Sea, on the other hand, is a unique ecosystem and a sensitive barometer of the state of the environment in a region of the world where an arid climate and the need to irrigate fields combine to create a persistent water deficit. You may have heard that the Dead Sea is on its way out. It's easy to see why the idea appeals to headline writers, but it's not entirely accurate. As the level falls, the density and saltiness increase, finally reaching a point where the rate of evaporation reaches a form of balance. Therefore, it may shrink significantly, but it will not vanish totally. Yet, it is diminishing at an alarming rate, with the surface level dropping more than a meter per year. Given that the Dead Sea surface is the lowest point on the Earth, currently 420 meters below sea level, this means that the world's lowest point is being recalculated on an annual basis. It's deep enough that driving along the road that winds down to the beach causes your ears to explode, as they do on an airplane landing. The Dead Sea vistas have an amazing, almost lunar feel to them. Imagine the Grand Canyon with Lake Como nestled in its depths. And the ancient world recognized that there was something special about the location, even if they weren't sure what it was. According to legend, Cleopatra employed goods from the region as part of her beauty regimen, which purportedly included ass's milk and almond extract, while in reality, such stories are common throughout the Middle East. And it's probable that King Herod, who had a winter palace nearby, came here for his health as well, but his tainted historical image tends to diminish his significance as a celebrity endorsement in the classical world. What is certain is that when the Romans ruled the Middle East, they maintained strict military control over the highways surrounding the Dead Sea because it was such a rich source of salt, a product so important at the time that it was used as currency. And the health benefits appear to be legitimate. The severe barometric pressure so far below sea level may provide air conditions favorable to asthmatics. I am one and have noticed a change. Those suffering from the severe skin disease psoriasis appear to benefit from the mix of mineral-rich water, soothing mud, and bright sunlight. Health agencies and organizations in several countries pay for people with the disease to go on therapeutic travel. Hence, despite the fact that the Dead Sea is diminishing and changing, it still has economic worth. Visitors can visit resorts in either Jordan or Israel, and both countries export cosmetic products made in this region. Because a portion of the shoreline is in the West Bank under Israeli control, it is likely that Palestinians will gain economically from the sea's special features in the future. But there's no denying that the drop in water level has been amazing. During World War I, British engineers etched initials on a rock to measure the water level. The scratch marks are still visible on a bone-dry rock a century later. To get to the current water level, you must descend the rocks, cross a busy main road, navigate a thicket of marshy vegetation, and journey across a vast mudflat. It's around 2 kilometers long in all. The retreating of the water has produced a significant problem a few kilometers up the shore, at the tourist town of Ein Gedi. The waves lapped up against the walls when the main building, with its restaurant, shower block, and souvenir store, was completed near the end of the 1980s. The resort has now been forced to purchase a unique railway in which passengers are dragged down to the water's edge by a tractor, another 2-kilometer journey. It's an unsettling rate of change for Nir Vanger, who oversees Ein Gedi's tourist operations. The sea was exactly here when I was 18, so we're not talking about 500 or 1,000 years ago, he explains. The Dead Sea was here and now it's 2 kilometers distance, and with the tractor and the gasoline and the employees, it costs us $500,000 a year to chase the sea. I grew up here on the Dead Sea, all my life is here, and sadly in the last few years, it's a bit of a sad existence because you watch your home landscape deteriorating and disappearing, and you know that when you leave for your children and grandchildren won't be what you grew up with. When we were building a new house, my wife asked if I wanted a view of the sea, and I said no. We should build it with a view of the mountains, since they stay still and the sea moves. Thus, it's easy to see the allure of the Dead Sea, with its peculiar chemistry, harsh microclimate, and soaring camel-colored mountains, a panorama that, barring the odd multi-story concrete hotel, would still be recognizable to Herod and Cleopatra. To a geologist, however, it is just the final lake of the Jordan River, its terminus. The river runs in at one end, but the water does not flow out at the other. Instead, it sits and evaporates. While it is an exaggeration to suggest the Dead Sea is dying, it is a fair description of the river that feeds it. True, flash floods occur during the brief rainy season, sending water dashing through the wadis or stony inlets. Yet, these remain parched for most of the year, and the river itself is hardly more than a trickle. There are locations in Israel and the occupied West Bank where you can virtually walk over it in the dry season. The Jordan was once one of the great streams of the ancient world, and Christ was baptized in it. Even in modern times, it was a raging river prone to overflowing during rainy winters. The U.S. government dispatched a naval expedition to study the Jordan in 1847 for reasons that appear to have been religious as well as scientific or navigational. The mission was conducted by a plucky officer named William F. Lynch, who deserves a mention in the region's history, if only for being the first to determine that the Dead Sea is below sea level. Lynch's account of his exploits is fascinating, even if he has a penchant for characterizing the region's indigenous peoples in terms that irritate 21st century sensibilities. What's fascinating is his account of the river itself, where he finds a sequence of 5-meter-high waterfalls separated by rapids at one point. He even worries about losing one or more of the expedition's boats. We came to a standstill at the remnants of an old bridge, which had become an impediment over which the foamy river poured like a mountain torrent, he writes. The river was just about 30 yards wide. There was still enough water in the Jordan 80 years later for a Russian Zionist engineer named Pinchas Rutenberg to erect a hydroelectric power station in a remote part of the river valley. Its abandoned structures still stand in what is now a dry landscape. Things have changed dramatically in recent years. Of course, the region's terrain hasn't changed. The northern Jordan River flows into the Sea of Galilee, whereas the southern Jordan River flows south out of the Galilee and into the Dead Sea. But the volumes of water moving into and out of that system have fluctuated dramatically in recent decades, as part of the Middle East's convoluted water politics. Israel has a dam across the southern section of the Sea of Galilee, giving it control over the amount of water flowing into the Jordan. The Galilee is regarded as a critical strategic water asset, despite the fact that it has steadily increased the amount of fresh water produced by desalination plants in the Mediterranean. The Israeli government began withdrawing water from the Jordan Valley system in the 1950s, a decade before the dam was constructed. This causes issues for farmers in both Jordan and the Palestinian area of the West Bank, who all rely on water to cultivate their crops and feed their families. But Israel has its own challenges, despite having the money and technical means to ensure its own people have enough water. The Jordan River is nourished by the Yarmouk River, which flows through Syria. For the last 30 years or more, Syrians have constructed more than 40 dams to control the water in Yarmouk, which once fed the Jordan. Some Jordanians believe Syria constructed several of these dams as retaliation for Israel and Jordan signing a peace pact in 1994. The agreement brought Jordan into line with Egypt, which signed a similar pact in 1979, but it put it well behind other countries such as Syria. Others are willing to believe that the Syrians built the dams to provide water for their own people, but the end impact is the same: less water available for a once mighty river. Of course, the Kingdom of Jordan has constructed dams for its own objectives as well. More broadly, the Jordan Valley is not the only location in the Middle East where dam construction has sparked a strategic conflict. When Turkey erected the Ataturk Dam on the Euphrates in the 1990s, Iraq and Syria claimed that the massive construction project cut off their access to water. What happens when the Dead Sea completely dries? The Dead Sea, situated between Jordan to the east and Israel to the west, is known for its high salinity and mineral content, making it one of the saltiest bodies of water on the planet. However, the sea is slowly but surely shrinking due to various environmental factors, including climate change, reduced water flow from the Jordan River, and human activity such as mining and tourism. If the Dead Sea were to completely dry up, it would have catastrophic effects on the surrounding ecosystem, including flora and fauna, as well as the local communities that depend on the sea for their livelihoods. The sea's high salt content creates unique habitats for various species of bacteria, algae, and halophytic salt-loving plants that could not survive in a regular freshwater environment. If the sea dries up, these species would lose their habitats, and their populations would decline, potentially leading to their extinction. Additionally, the Dead Sea is a crucial resource for the surrounding communities, as it is used for irrigation and other purposes. If the sea were to completely dry up, the local economy would suffer, and the people living in the area would lose a vital source of income. The drying up of the Dead Sea would also have significant environmental consequences. The sea acts as a sink for pollutants and other chemicals, and its disappearance could lead to the release of these toxins into the surrounding environment. Overall, the complete drying up of the Dead Sea would have disastrous consequences for the environment, the local communities, and the unique ecosystem that has developed around the sea's high salt content. That concludes our video for today. If you enjoyed it, make sure to check out some of our other incredible videos on our channel. We've got plenty of amazing content for you to explore. And if you want to stay up to date with our daily releases, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.